What's up, Retro Maniacs? Joe Day coming at you from Mike's Retro Trading Cards. And on today's video, I'm going to sit down with one of my favorite YouTube content creators. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about comic books and not trading cards. We've got Gary from Very Gary Comics. But before we get to that, hit the music. All right, Retro Maniacs, I am really excited to be joined by our guest today. I'm not exaggerating when I say this guy has some of my favorite content on YouTube right now. Absolutely awesome stuff, educational, informative, all of those things. We've got Gary from Very Gary Comics. How you doing today, man?
Good, thank you. That's a nice opening there. I'm
Hey,
flattered.
you're a guy who you have a wife, you have two kids, you're on YouTube all the time, you're hunting collections. The fact that you gave time for us, we really appreciate
I
it. I don't
usually
know,
never
do you
say no, so let everybody know that.
well, now you're going to be on every podcast. It's not going to be a special, but we'll go with it. So, I was telling you before we started, the viewers, I actually reached out to Gary a few weeks ago at this point, thanking him for all the content, because I actually found randomly three Silver Surfer comic books: Silver Surfer 1, Silver Surfer 3, Silver Surfer 4, in my father-in-law's office, and I had no idea what to do with them. So I literally went to YouTube, typed in how to submit comics to CGC, and that flowing mane came up. The orange mane came up, and I said, I got to check this stuff out. And I've been hooked ever since. And it really did help me get those comics out. I knew nothing. I knew absolutely nothing about the process. So I
That's
appreciate
good.
that.
It's funny because when I started the channel, it was literally it sounds selfish, but I literally started the YouTube channel for me, so I can keep a catalog on all the stuff I've ever purchased.
Yeah.
So I can always go back and see, oh, I paid this for that, or I bought this, and look, oh, this was a great collection. What happened, like, it just blew up where it was started becoming an informative channel, which was never my intention. But you're not the first person to reach out and say that they actually watched my content for educational purposes and it helped them along the process.
Out big time for me, because I grade cards. We're big into cards over at Mike's Retro Trading Cards, and we grade cards quite a bit. I knew that process pretty easily. I didn't know about pressing. I had no idea what that was. I should have gone with your guy Erod though with
Oh
with
yeah,
these books, but I went with was it CSS or CCS, whichever one
CCS
was
through CGC.
through
Yeah, that what would it take a
CGC.
year to get your book back?
No, actually a month and a half.
Oh, did you fast track
No,
everything?
no, it was the
Ooh, a
three
month have been the
books.
tier.
Yeah, yep,
That's good.
absolutely, and they came back very quick. I was surprised by that, but, I didn't know about pressing, didn't know how to pack the books, didn't know how to fill out any of the information, so your stuff really helped, and I'm sure it's helped a ton of people who really don't know what they're doing. I was in comic books in the '90s. We were talking about this before we started recording. I was in comic books in the '90s, and it is definitely different. I got out of it for quite a
It's
while.
changed a little bit.
When did you get into it?
Well, I was the '90s thing too. That was
Yeah.
me too back then. Batman Adventures and X-Men, the cartoons, and
Oh,
all
yeah.
that. But I would say I got back into it really hardcore probably about 8 years ago because I started reading the New 52, the Batman run from Scott Snyder and
Okay.
Greg Capullo. It kind of pulled me back into comic
That's
books.
where they reset everything, right?
Yeah, the New 52 back in 2011, they reset everything in DC. All issue
Okay.
ones, new stories, new beginnings, all that. And the Batman New 50, there were some very good New 52 runs, but Batman, specifically Batman, was the best. And it pulled me back in probably around issue, I want to say like in the low 30s. Ended up running 52 issues, but that pulled me back in. And then it's just really funny. When I started, it's just weird how things all work out. I
Mhm.
actually started messing around on YouTube with mystery box unboxings like Loot Crate, all those
Oh, yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Loot Crate and Arcade One Up, all these subscription box mystery boxes I was
Yeah,
doing.
yeah.
Now on the side, I'm still reading my books and doing that. And my wife said, "Hey, you need to if you're going to do this YouTube thing, you really need to start." And this was back 7 years ago. She's like, you really need to make an Instagram. I'm like, I had already deleted my Facebook. I wanted no part of any social
Same.
media. And she's like, you're going to have to, if you really want to do this for
Yeah.
fun or whatever, and you want it to grow. So I'm like, all right, make the Instagram. And before you know it, I start posting my boxes, right? My subscription boxes. And like, there's not a whole lot of love there. The channel isn't that great.
Right.
It's silly. So I then one couple things happened all simultaneously. And this is now I'm going off track here.
No,
But
that's why you're on, man. This is long.
what happened was I purchased a Comic-Con box. And
Okay.
again, a subscription box. You got books in the mail. You didn't know what you were getting. All around the same time that I was going to my first New York Comic-Con with true intentions of I want to get this book signed. I'm going to send it out to get graded for the first time. I didn't know the process, but I knew that it was a lot easier doing it at a convention than actually
Because you
doing
get
it at
to send
home
the book
on the
to the
right. You literally
yeah.
walk up to CGC and I want this book signed. They give you a witness to walk with you to the artist or writer that you need to see. So I went through this process for the first time, New York Comic Con. Everything just happened to go at once. And then the biggest, most positive comments and likes and follows came from comic book content that I was posting on Instagram, not
Yeah.
these silly subscription boxes.
Right.
Well, the Comic Con box that I got in the mail had some books in it that actually had some significant value. So I sold them, and before you know it, the ball started rolling. And when I was seeing a lot of positive stuff on Instagram, I kind of started going in that direction because it was something I enjoyed anyway, and I was already doing it. Like on the side, I
Yeah.
was reading these books, I was already involved. Then I bought my first collection, and it just kind
I
of
was gonna say, about how long ago did that start blowing up where you were starting to go out and actually look for collections, starting to, put that business together?
it took another level at the beginning of COVID, but I was doing it probably, I would say now about 7 years, 6, 7 years. But
Oh,
when
wow.
COVID hit, it went to another level. But all the hobbies did, you know that
Oh, yeah,
everything
for
went through.
sure. It got
But my
crazy.
following exploded because I actually started the YouTube channel again for myself to catalog what I have found. I did that in 2019, January of 2019, and I ran it for about 4 or 5 months, and I wasn't consistent. I had a lot going on, and
Yeah.
it wasn't worth the time. I'm like, whatever. I'll just, whatever. I'll buy collections. Just keep doing what I'm doing. 2019 New York Comic Con was the first New York Comic Con that I sold at, and my buddy came and helped. And the amount of people that came up to my booth with my buddy there and said, "Hey, how come you stopped doing YouTube content?" It was
Oh,
it
okay.
was it was a lot. And my buddy said to me, and this is October of 2019, he said, "You really should get back on YouTube. I can't believe how many people have come by and say, I love your Instagram. What happened to your YouTube content?" So in October of 2019, I said, all right, I'm going to focus in January. I'm going to New Year's resolution.
Mhm.
I'm going to get back on YouTube. I'm going to be consistent and put out and this is for anybody who's listening who actually does YouTube or wants to get consistency is key. If it's
Yeah.
one video a week, even just one, same day, same time, every week, that is like key. And my buddy Jem Mint told me that, and that kind of worked out. He has a YouTube channel as well. He has like 150,000
He has
subscribers.
his statues
Yeah,
are
him.
crazy,
Yep.
right? Like, his
Oh
background
yeah.
is amazing.
So this is now, remember, October 2019. January 1st, 2020, I say, this is it. I'm going to be doing YouTube consistently. COVID starts creeping up. In February of 2020, I purchased the best collection I ever had. And that collection was so good that it carried me through the early stages of COVID for content. The
Was that the
collection was,
Virginia collection?
no, that was not the Virginia
Okay.
collection. This was a collection down in Yonkers, New York. What happened was it was 60 long boxes and it had books from the 60s to today.
Oh, wow.
And he had such good stuff in there that I was able to break that collection up and make content per title. So what I did was, okay,
Okay.
here's the Amazing Spider-Man books that came out of this collection. Here are all the keys. Here's the first Shocker. Here's the first Green Goblin. Here's the first Kingpin. Here's the first Morbius. And I literally would show every book, talk about each book, and it all came out of the same collection. So that content rolled in through COVID because it was such a big collection. There were
Yeah.
so many books. There were so many books worth talking about that it was able to carry me through COVID. YouTube started to explode because, like you said, this wasn't my intention, but it was informative.
Yeah.
People were learning about the hobby and I was helping them, not realizing it at the time. It was literally, again, selfish as it is for me to
And
keep
I
tabs.
I've watched all those videos because I pick a few content creators as, like, I call it lovingly background noise, right?
Yeah.
So there's a few folks with cards that I love to just throw on their videos, and just as I'm
My
sorting
wife does
cards
that.
or listing stuff on eBay, I
Yep.
love doing that. So I did watch most of those. So I went back to 2020, 2019,
Yeah.
and started watching those videos. You started talking about in those videos, you started talking about what you were sending to CGC
Yes.
and all that stuff. When did that become, like, part of the business model? When did you realize that grading comics, we do it with cards, obviously. We have,
Yeah.
PSA, SGC,
Yep.
CSG now. When did you figure out that that was, like, something that just could take the business to the next level?
Because what I realized is when you're grading a raw book, especially a high dollar raw book, the littlest bit, if you think this book is graded at a 5, but maybe it's really a 4.5, but you priced it at a 5.5, you almost needed that locked in guaranteed grade from a third party company like a CGC, which is a PSA, right? Same kind of
Mhm.
thing, Beckett,
Yep.
all that. You needed that for two things, in my opinion. Number one, you guaranteed a third party grade. So you essentially guaranteed the value. It's
Yeah.
a proven fact. Here's what the book is worth in this grade. So now you had definitive value. So what that did for me was it basically proved a dollar amount. Like I didn't want to overcharge people and I certainly didn't want to undercharge people.
Mhm.
I wanted to be in that right wheelhouse. And by sending stuff out to CGC, you confirmed the value. That was the first thing that was really important for me. And the second thing is restoration. There are comic books out there that have color touch and glue and pieces added. And at the time early on, I was a novice and sometimes I couldn't tell if there was a book that was restored. So that significantly decreases the value of a book, almost
Right.
50% on some books. So I wanted to make sure that some of these high dollar books that I could sell raw for $300, $400, $500, that they weren't restored. So it
Yeah.
was worth me taking the time and the money and the energy to get it to CGC to make sure that these books were confirmed blue label, which is a universal grade.
Mhm.
Nothing was wrong with the book, and a definitive grade. So you not only confirmed that it was not restored, but it had a third party grade that could, again, definitive value. It had a factual price point on it. No, there's not a lot of waiving at that point. No
Yeah,
negotiating.
I collect Tom Brady rookie cards. That's one of my PCs. And with Brady cards, it's kind of the same thing where you want to make sure the card hasn't been trimmed. You want to make sure it's authentic.
Yes.
There's a lot of fakes out there. It's so easy
Yep.
to fake, especially cards. Once you get that third party to give it a thumbs up, a buyer from eBay can't say, "Oh, wait a minute, this isn't the grade you said it was or you estimate it was," and send it back. And there are so many horror stories of returns on things like that. I don't know if you had to deal with that at all when selling books, where you're like, "Oh, I looked at this book and there's evidence of trimming or there's evidence of
Yeah,
color
actually
touch."
with the Daredevil, there's one time I bought a collection and the Daredevil was raw and I knew something was up with it. It was just color touch. It wasn't a big deal because trimming you can't fix. Color
Right.
touch on comic books you can fix because what they do is they actually cut out the piece that was colored
That's wild.
unless it destroys the book significantly. So there was a time where I bought a collection and the Daredevil one, he had a lot of graded stuff, but the Daredevil one, which is a huge silver
Mhm.
age key, huge, was not graded. And when I looked at it, it looked a little off. And when I opened it, the paper, the first page, what CGC does is they put a piece of moisture paper in there. I forgot the actual name of it, but what it does is it prevents moisture. And that was in that book. And something told me that this book was sent in, graded, came back
Purple label.
restored, and
Yeah.
they cracked open the slab and left it open. I'm like, but I couldn't tell the color touch at that point. So I sent it
Yeah.
in. Sure enough, came back restored. Not the end of the world. It was still only a 2.0. I sent it back to get restoration removed. It's all time and money, which sucked.
Right.
But at least I got it back. Same grade, blue label,
Oh, wow.
which I got lucky with that one. But what's
Yeah.
really nice too about getting these things graded, and this is when so the nice thing about what I do is that when I started, I want to make sure I word this right. I'm a buyer as well. I'm a collector as well.
Mhm.
So I have preference. And when I walk up to a booth at a convention, I know what I'm looking for. And not necessarily in a book, but in the way you've set your booth up, how clean it is, how organized it is, all that. So when I set all my stuff up like that, I want to make sure I would want to come to that booth, right?
Right.
So on the flip side, getting books graded, it not only confirms that this book is not only restored and it has a definitive grade, a definitive value, but it assures the buyer that they're getting what they want.
Yeah.
That's book raw. There's a slight bit of uncertainty, right? But when it's graded and it's done and it's good to go, if because if I'm not spending thousands of dollars on raw comic books like I'm just not going to do that because I'm unsure if
Right.
a certain book that's $1,000 book, I'd rather buy it graded, knowing
Spend a
I
little extra, get the graded version of it. What's interesting to me is eBay just installed this program, this authentication program for trading cards. And if it's a card over, say, $250, you actually mail it to either CSG, which is the CCG card side, or PSA, depending if it's slabbed, and they'll verify the slab and everything. I'm really kind of surprised that eBay doesn't do something like that with comic books, some sort of business model where they authenticate a comic book hasn't been altered, or it's off, they can show its
yeah.
authenticity. I'm since CSG, all these damn acronyms, since CSG is the card side of it, I'm really surprised that they haven't suggested to eBay, hey, why don't we do a comic book authentication? Because I was looking at a comic book that I don't have like Grail comic books because I'm really out of it. But I was looking at one on eBay and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to buy this because it's raw, because I don't know. I have no idea,
Yeah.
and you can't look at the book. So that makes me a little nervous to even consider buying something raw.
Yeah. And especially if you're spending big dollars, you're buying a $20-$30 book, okay, it is what it is, but you're trying to buy a Journey into Mystery 83, which is the first Thor, and a 2.5 is like a $7,000 book. Do you want to spend
Yeah.
$7,000 on a raw copy that might be 2.5?
Right.
Might be
Right.
might be a 2.0. If it's a 2.0, it's like $1,000 less, right? So you that's the grading is really important from the buyer and the seller. It protects the seller, but it protects the buyer as well.
Oh, for
Everyone
sure.
wins.
For sure. Yeah. The problem that you have is people so often, especially in cards, they see a raw card and they think of what it could be. Oh, this
Yeah.
could be a 10. So I'm going to buy this card instead of buying a 9. You're going to buy for a little less, but instead of buying the 9, they're buying the raw card to try and get the 10. So it's
It
it's
happens
it's a whole
with comics too.
yeah.
People will because I sell raw books at conventions as well, and people will look at it. They'll ask my opinion, what the grade is, and if there's an opportunity for them to buy that, press it themselves,
Mhm.
get it off to CGC, and turn a profit, they will, even if it's a book they don't want.
Yeah.
Happens
You
all the time.
You talked about, you have the Journey into Mystery behind you, right? That is it
Yeah.
2.5. You've talked about before, like on your videos, like stepping up your collection. So like
Oh
going
yeah.
from a 2.5 to a 3 to a 3.5.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a situation where you look at, say, a 3 or a 3.5 and you say, this doesn't look as good as my 2.5, and you pass? Or
Yep.
is it just a numbers game for you?
Yep. Nope. That's a great question because this just happened probably like 2-3 months ago. I have a Showcase 22 first appearance of Hal Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
I have
Love
that in
Hal
a
Jordan.
2.5 in my personal collection.
Hmm.
I just made a huge purchase. This is going back maybe October, November, where I did acquire another one, a Showcase 22 in a 3.0. The 3.0 did not present as well as my 2.5. So I ended up moving the 3.0 for some other stuff. Coincidentally, I made a big trade and was able to acquire one book for my personal collection. Not a big, giant, expensive one like a Showcase. It's actually just a Turtle book. Turtle's #1, but it's like a 4th print signed by Eastman in a 9.8. So like that little book was nice for the PC. But yeah, I have 100% done that where it does not present as well. And I'm like, I'm not going to keep this one.
We preach on the channel so much, buy the card, not the grade.
Yeah.
Actually look at what you're buying instead of just the little number at the top, because a 7 is not always a 7, an 8 is not, sometimes,
Mhm.
if your grader's having a bad day,
Yeah.
your really nice presenting card or really nice presenting comic is going to get quite a bit lower of a
Yeah, but it
number.
works the other way too.
That's true.
You
They
know, what
just
if your
they just
grader
got a
got a little
promotion
bit of
and
action the night
yeah.
before?
I
He's
didn't want, I,
feeling
I
good.
was going to go there, but I don't know you
Yeah.
well enough to make
No,
that
he's
joke. But yeah.
feeling good
Oh
and
yeah.
you get a little grade bump.
Yeah, it happens. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Uh,
But these are
um,
also humans, right? People make
yeah,
mistakes and they miss things, and this is just natural human error. People rip CGC all the time. And I try to explain to everybody, listen, CGC grades thousands of books a day.
Hmm.
You're only hearing on social media the couple they may have screwed up.
Yeah.
But think of all the ones you never hear about, the ones that came back right. You
Right.
never do. You only hear
Well,
about the mistakes. So it
well,
seems like there's more mistakes out there, but there's really
right.
not.
And they're only complaining about the mistakes that go against them. They're not complaining about the 9.8 they got that should have been a
Yeah.
9.2, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. It's only the
So,
other way around. So, some people just you can't make happy.
oh no, never, never. So you mentioned in one of your Q&As, I guess a year ago now at this point.
Oh, I'm actually doing another one. So there
Are
you
you?
go.
All
Yep.
right.
About every 6 months to
Appointment
a year.
appointment television for me. I'll make sure
There you go.
that's one.
Might be a
Um,
two-parter. We'll see.
oh, okay. So this isn't your full-time gig. Are you still HVAC? Are you still doing
Yeah.
that full-time as
Yep.
well?
That's full time.
Have you mentioned it in one of your Q&As that you thought about maybe opening up a space, maybe doing something more full-time of the
Yeah, that's
have
not
you considered
happening.
that? No.
No, I thought about it. So I'm not. I'm never going to leave my job.
Yeah.
So the only way to open a retail space is to have somebody run it for me, which is a massive overhead.
Mhm.
So it just does. It's not worth it. I'd rather just keep doing what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
if an opportunity comes, you never know. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll. I don't know. Maybe I'll win Survivor someday. Who knows? You
Have
know.
you applied? Have you officially applied?
A couple times, yeah. But here
Oh,
I am,
really?
still working and selling comic books. So, but yeah, like unless something crazy happens, there's no reason for me to open a retail space with the amount of overhead it is, especially
Right.
now in the digital era. Like you don't
Right.
need a retail space. Like, and if I did ever open a retail space, I don't even know if I would have a large list of weekly books coming in. Because comic books come out every week. They're
Right.
on Wednesdays, and I just don't know if it would be worth it. And now with Whatnot, the conventions,
Yeah.
I'm perfectly content the way things are.
And then plus, the traveling to check out collections, things like that, it's so time consuming.
Very
I
tough.
was curious, give us a strange story, the craziest story, the funniest story from collection hunting. You've told a lot of them on your channel. I'm just
Oh
curious if there's
yeah.
one that really sticks out.
Yeah. I had one guy. I got a call from a woman who wanted me to come buy her stuff. Everything was in like those manila envelope, the bags though with the
Oh,
lid,
yeah.
with the
Yeah.
string,
Uh-huh.
one of those things.
Interoffice mail.
Yeah, one exactly. Just stacks all over a kitchen table. So I'm like, all right, so now I got to open each one of these things. You're gonna have the bleep ready if I
Yeah.
curse?
Mike,
Okay.
get the bleep ready.
Get
All
the
right.
bleep ready at this minute mark. So I go in there and I look at all of her stuff. Now I'm over there untying things and lifting lids and looking, and there was really nothing of any significance in any of these bags.
Yeah.
There were probably like 100, maybe 100, 200 books of Drek. Nothing.
Yeah.
Crap. Junk.
50-cent kind of stuff, if
Not
that.
even. This is the
Okay.
kind of stuff that I bulk out. I have a guy who lives upstate who purchases my bulk at bulk pricing. This is
Mhm.
literally all junk. And I don't remember what I offered her because I didn't want it. And she
Mhm.
was like begging me to take it. So I threw her a dollar, just say $100, but I don't even think it was $100. I think it was less than that. And this
Yeah.
video was on my YouTube channel somewhere because it goes back this is a long
Yeah.
time ago. So as I'm packing everything up, some guy comes out of like a back room, and I think he was in like a bathrobe. I don't even remember. And he asked, "What did I pay?" And I told him, and he's like, "Huh, "That's shit. That's shit." And I'm like, "Well, so are the books." Like, so
Was he a big guy? How big
he
was
was a
this
big
guy?
guy, but I don't know. I have that story. I mean, I have, I- you know, I'm sure if I thought long and hard, I'd have more,
Yeah.
but that one always stick out. Like I didn't even
Yeah.
want the books. I was giving her the money to help her out, not
Right.
because she even needed the money, but she wanted to
She
get
just
rid of
wanted
the
to get rid
books.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and which does happen. I mean, the amount of collections that I come across where the wife wants them out of the house, it takes too much space. Um, I'm retiring. I don't want to leave this to my kids. They don't know what they're doing. They're not interested.
Right.
Like that seems to be the
Yeah,
stuff.
the space thing we talked about before we started recording is, it's funny you talk about 20,000 comics or 2,000 comics or whatever. It would take you a carload to get some of these. With
Oh
cards, you
yeah.
can just throw them into a couple of boxes about this big and you're
Yeah.
set. It's a big difference.
Yeah, a lot of weight, takes a lot
Oh
of room
yeah.
up. Paper's heavy.
Yeah, it really is.
Yep.
Um, so in the card collecting world, I found this interesting. So since we've gotten back into cards ourselves, we found there's like this big like debate between, oh, I'm a true collector. I'm a, everyone else, you're in it to flip, you're in to
Yeah.
invest. Is there the same type of like battle in the comic
Yeah.
book hobby? Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. It's horrible. I have people saying so much nasty stuff to me, and like it's like I don't think these people know that this all started from collecting, and I have
Yeah.
not sold my personal. I'm surrounded in this
Yeah.
room by toys, comics, and statues, but I'm just a flipper.
Right.
Essentially, you can go to any comic book convention and go to every single vendor and say the same thing.
Right. And with cards, you try, we talk about it a lot of the time on our podcast, you want to sell something to buy something else.
Yeah,
Like if
you
I'm selling something, I'm probably going to take most of that money and buy another card.
right.
Or
We say it all the time, have the hobby pay for itself. Let
yeah.
the hobby pay for itself because you can't collect everything. You
Right.
streamline, right? I focus on Batman Rogues, Ninja Turtle stuff, He-Man, Thor. Like that's kind of, and Green Lantern. Like that's kind of where I focus. If I see something cool or at a good price, yeah, I'll pick it up for myself. But streamline, focus, kind of hone in. When it comes to sports stuff, we were talking before. I'm a Yankees and Rangers fan. So
Hmm.
like I don't even pick up Knicks stuff. I'm a Knicks fan and a Giants fan, but it's not my sports, it's not my memorabilia, it's not my cards. I Rangers and Yankees.
But for all of our sports card viewers out there, he did buy into a break and got a LeBron James out of 10 and it came back a PSA 10.
Yeah,
So
I put it away
yeah,
already, but
I
yeah.
mean, so he's just charmed life over there at a very Gary
Well, that's
Comics.
just one win. You want to hear about all the losses?
Well,
Like,
I'm gonna ask about that here. We have a few more questions, but the one that misery loves company is one of my favorite expressions. So when the world of collectibles just went crazy in the last few years because of the pandemic and everything that was going on, was there something that you had sold right before the pandemic,
yep.
before prices went crazy? I want to hear those. People
Oh,
love those
oh,
stories because it makes them feel better
yeah. Like
about
when I
something they
left
did.
New York Comic Con at 2019. Now it all worked out. It all worked out. But when I left Comic Con at New York Comic Con in 2019, I sold my entire booth to one guy and walked out of there with my tables and my stands. And I sold it all. The price, what was it? $25,000 for everything.
Yeah,
If I had not done that, two things would have happened. Number one, if I hadn't done that, I never would have been able to buy the best collection I ever
yeah.
bought just a couple months later. So it worked out, right?
Hmm.
But if I hadn't done that, that booth should have been worth come COVID time somewhere between $100 and $125,000 in books. So,
I
but
mean,
it all worked out because I
it
wouldn't have
works
been
out,
able,
right?
think about it. If I don't make that transaction, that means I don't buy that great collection, which means I don't have the YouTube content to push through COVID, which means
Yeah,
I don't grow. It all worked out the way it was
yeah.
supposed to, and it's fine. You can't look back. I mean, the one too that bugs one specific sale that really bothers me. It's not the end of the world, but one specific one is I bought a collection and it had the first appearance of Mysterio in a 5.0.
Okay.
Great mid-grade Silver Age Spider-Man key. I think it's Amazing Spider-Man 13. Amazing book. Awesome book. I sold it, and 2 weeks later, they announced that he was the villain in the second Spider-Man
Oh,
movie.
jeez.
So, but
That's like,
you know what? I always tell myself, you make your money, you move on to the next thing. It is what it is.
right,
Because
when
you
they
could
say you
also
never go
make
broke taking a profit or something like that
right, right,
sometimes,
and I'm sure there's stories the other way too, where
Yeah.
like I sold books that were hot for that week or something. I don't know, just by accident, and then they drop. And, it works both ways. It all evens itself out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and there's no you couldn't have seen that coming. You hear horror stories about people selling off LeBron James cards or Steph Curry cards or
Oh yeah.
Tom Brady cards, before he won the Super Bowl, and yeah, it's just you can't really beat yourself up too much about that. All right, so what is one book you absolutely love, but you feel like you're on an island about? Like you're like everyone else is saying, why do you love this book so much? I have my
Um,
guess of what it might be for you.
there is a Green Lantern. No, because people agree with me on that one. I don't know. Oh, you know what? there is kind of one book that I have invested and have a million shares of. I think I have like 20 to 25 copies of this one book, but I don't think I'm on an island. It is Fantastic Four
Fantastic Four
annual.
annual number 6.
Yeah, that's the one. It
I
is
wanted
the
to prove
first.
I knew what you were going to say before
Yeah,
you said that was
it is the first appearance of Annihilus. It is the first appearance of Franklin Richards. It's an annual Silver Age book, which means there's less copies out there because back in the Silver Age, comics cost 12 cents, but your annuals cost 25 cents.
Oh wow.
So there were less of them were purchased because they're more than twice the price of a regular book.
Right.
Granted, they're twice as thick. They're square bound.
Mm-hmm.
So there's less of them out there. They're square bound, which means the conditions they're tough to keep in high grade,
Yeah.
especially back then. It's not your typical couple staples folded over. Here's your
It's like the
book.
Silver Surfers I submitted were
The
square
Silver
bound.
Surfers you
Yeah.
submitted, all square bound books where the cover was actually glued on the spine. The staples are internal.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult book to get in high grade. It's a Silver Age dual key. It's an annual. It's hard to get in high grade. I mean, it just has everything going for it, except we have not seen Annihilus and we have not seen Franklin Richards in the MCU. But when
And
those
we'll probably
characters,
see Franklin Richards, right? I mean, with
we've
Fantastic Four
they
coming with Kang.
teased Franklin Richards and Doctor Strange when Reed Richards, John Krasinski said, "I have kids."
I have kids, yeah.
Yeah. But
And then he
yeah, I
turned
do
into
believe
spaghetti.
I have here. Mark this down, and let's see if I'm right because I do make
All right.
predictions all the time.
I got the
I can
pen.
see the Fantastic Four movie coming out and being phenomenal, and I can see an end credit scene where Sue Storm tells Reed, "I'm
She's
pregnant."
pregnant.
That's your end credit scene.
And the book will go through the roof at that point, right?
Yep. And the cool thing about Annihilus in that particular book is that he's from the negative zone, and that's kind of something they haven't really touched on or talked about yet. So I can see it. It just makes a lot of sense eventually. It's a
Yeah.
great. And then you also have what's cool about Annihilus in particular is you probably have. I know I'm talking to probably sports cards fans, but with Annihilus, you have arguably the best modern age Marvel story in Annihilation. That was a big story arc that crossed over a lot of things, and it was great. They put it in an omnibus. It had legs. There was a lot going on there. It was just a major event for Marvel, and it was a great story. And Annihilus it was all about him.
Yeah, and one of my favorite cards from Series 2 of Marvel is Annihilus, by the way.
He looks awesome, doesn't he?
It's just such a very cool card. Last comic book question I have for you, and then I'm going to talk about cards for 1 minute.
Yeah.
So what is the one book you sold that you regret not keeping in your PC? Not for financial reasons, just like you were just really bummed out that you let it go.
I don't have anything anymore because I acquired it back, but I used to get really upset when I sold a lot of my collection, my Batman 181 in a 4.5, which is the first Poison Ivy, because I collect Batman Rogues, and I was selling everything off, and I regretted it. And then I acquired a 4.5, and then I actually made a trade for a 7.0. So now I've upgraded because we talked about that, right? You don't have to enter into a book or a card for that matter at a 9.0. Right? Get your low grade, get your hands on it, get in. You could sell it off, add a little bit more cash, and just keep stepping up. So that's what I did. I've done that with quite a number of my books because they get expensive.
Oh yeah, I and I didn't mention this on the channel. I actually bought an X-Men 14.
Oh, that's
first appearance of the Sentinels because I was such a huge Sentinels fan because of the animated
and they're on the
series.
cover, so that helps.
And that's such very, very cool cover. And I picked that up in a 5.5, which I'm sure a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, that was through the roof.
Yeah,
but
it was.
I think I paid like $500 for it. But that's something that looks better than a 5.5 in my humble, not knowing anything about comics opinion.
Yeah,
it presents really, really well. So it's going to be one of those books I put behind me when I have my new recording area.
There you go.
So last thing I want to talk about, it's going to be card related, kind of, sort of. First off, I watched you rip a box of X-Men. Okay.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I'm going to give you some shit for this, and I'll tell you why.
Please.
You got two complete sets, and you got 8 holograms. I ripped open a box of X-Men on our channel. I barely got 1 set, and I got 3 holograms.
That's a bad box. That's a bad
So
break, man.
yeah, I'm like, you're just pulling hologram after hologram, and I'm like, what the hell is going on, man? I was really bummed out. It wasn't great content because I was just, oh, three holograms. It seems like a okay amount, and then I'm seeing you pull eight, and I was pretty upset by it. But the last thing I want to do, going to play a little game. I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera, but I'm going to ask Mike to throw up the pictures post when he edits this thing. But if you remember back in the 90s, they did these most valuable comic cards, they were called, and it had the cover of comic books. And I'll show you if you can see
Oh
this.
yeah,
Here's
yeah,
an
yeah.
example. Do you remember
Yep.
those? Oh, thanks, Mike. So, what they did is on the back of these, they had the publication date, they had the original price, and then my favorite part, they had the 1990 Overstreet price guide value in near mint, which is what, a CGC 9?
Near mint minus is a 9, so you're looking at like a 9.2,
Uh,
9.4.
okay, so this is what we're going to do.
Actually, a 9.8.
I pulled four out, okay? And they did them in DC, but I couldn't get any current values on them with the DC books that they had. But I pulled four out, and I'm going to ask you what you think the 1990 Overstreet value was of each of these comics.
Okay.
Okay, and then I'm going to tell you what I did some research to see ballpark what they would be valued at today. All right, first one here it is. It's X-Men Giant
Giant
Size
size.
X-Men #1 back in 1990. What do you think the near mint Overstreet price guide value was?
So this is actually a great book for you comic card guys out there. That's the first Colossus, the first Storm, the first
Mm-hmm.
Nightcrawler, second Wolverine. Those are all the characters everybody cares about. That that's another square bound book, an annual.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say in what year? 90.
1990.
A near mint copy of that book, $850.
$95.
What? That's no way.
Mike, put it up here. Show the card. There it is. $95. That's what they
That's
have it. In,
that's
in case you're wondering, the Giant Size X-Men sold. There was one, I think it was a 9.4, sold just a couple of months ago for about $9,000. Crazy. All right, so let's get the time machine. Here we go.
oh
Amazing
god.
Fantasy
So this is the
number
first Spider-Man.
15, first Spider-Man. What do you think the 1990 Overstreet price guide value in a near mint?
Well, now you got me nervous with that last one. I'm gonna say $1,000 again.
You're closer on this one. This one was 2,800
Okay.
near mint. Could you imagine? Get the
A
time
little more
machine. We're
realistic.
working on the
Okay.
technology. The last Amazing Fantasy I could find on eBay that sold in a 7.5, which is well below this in the near mint, sold for $450,000.
I'd
All
love to
right.
find one of those in a collection.
Yeah, no kidding, right? You still haven't found one? Is that
I've
one you're
never
still?
found. There's a very small handful of Silver Age books I've never found. I've never found the first Spider-Man. I found Amazing Spider-Man #1 a couple times, but not
Yeah.
Amazing Fantasy 15. Never found the first Thor. I've never found the first Iron Man. I've never found the first Doctor Strange.
But you have found the first Fantastic Four,
Yeah, twice.
which is right here.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
I'm gonna put that one. That one is I'm gonna say $2,000 on that one.
Very close. Good guess. 2650
Hmm.
in that near mint grade. Last one I could find was last September
Oh, geez.
at a 5.5. That's the closest I could find to near mint. $53,000 in a 5.5.
That seems about right.
All right, last one. I saved this one for you, my man. Journey into
Oh
Mystery,
yeah,
number 83. Your guy Thor. All
first
right,
Thor.
first Thor back in 1990. What do you think a near mint copy of this bad boy was going for?
1,500.
Close, close. Half that,
Oh my,
$750. So
terrible.
the last one that I could find on eBay was 6.5 last April, $35,000. That sound about right?
Yeah, that's a great book. That's an
Yeah.
undervalued book. I think Thor: Love and Thunder killed the value in that book.
Oh yeah, terrible movie. I
Awful.
mean, our buddy EP thinks it's the next Citizen Kane, but whatever.
Terrible. What's wrong with
It's a
that guy?
bad taste. Bad
Mm.
taste. All right, Gary, this has been really, really fun. I've enjoyed myself. Hope you've had a good time too.
Yeah.
Um, we'd love to have you on anytime you want to come on. And as a wise man once said to me, keep it comics. What's how can the folks find you?
Let's see. I'm all over the place. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter is all Very Gary underscore comics. You can find me on YouTube, Very Gary Comics. You can find me on Whatnot, Very Gary underscore comics. I want to get into pack breaks on Whatnot, to be honest with you.
Ooh, that's a dangerous game.
Maybe not sports cards, but I do want to get into like the Marvel stuff. I've done it a couple times on there.
Well, I'm actually getting a box of Fleer Ultra Avengers. I'm getting two
Oh,
boxes of it. It should be here. Should be here in the next
is that the
couple of
new one?
weeks. That is the new one. So they've got the artist sketches, they've got autographs and
Yeah,
stuff
they're
like
probably
that.
not
Maybe I'll bring you on and watch you. You can watch me open up a box of it. But it should be fun stuff if it ever comes out. It was supposed to be out like 6 months ago, so we'll see.
It's
But
probably, why it got delayed, I'm sure, is they're waiting on the artists.
yeah, that's usually what happens
Yep.
with those. But all right, Gary, thanks so much for doing this. I know you're a busy man, but we
Yeah.
were able to steal about an hour of your time. So
I appreciate it.
yeah,
Fun.
we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks a lot, man.
Absolutely.